that first 6 months, I was like, wow, I can't become that. I can't just invent that. But what I can do is learn more and more about it. Like, this is what I'm thinking. What are you feeling? The bit around like how they act, how they behave, how they conduct themselves, so important. And that's real coaching, I think.
So guys, we're back, and we're back with some more special guests. The person who's in front of me here, I've known for probably over 10 years. This is Adam Temple. Adam Temple is a professional football coach who would like to welcome onto the show. How are we, mate?
All good, mate. All good.
See you,
Thanks for having me, mate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Temps, as I call him and as everyone else calls you in football, how long have you been around in football now, coaching?
Well, I actually started coaching when I was about 14, which, as we've pointed out before, is quite a long time ago. So I've been in employment in football now for 25 years. Getting over that.
And what's your current role?
Currently now assistant manager at Barrow AFC, obviously in League Two, which I've done now for 2 years. Just finished my second season there.
So, obviously, my relationship with Temps is I met Temps whilst we were both working at Manchester City. I actually remember Temps' first ever session when he come in, I think as a bit of an assessment on an interview, was it? And straight away I will say this, you see a lot of people in football. I've met a lot of people in football, and you can see the ones who really have the knowledge, but you can also see the ones who can deliver the knowledge and connect to people. And from that day of you coming in the Dome, at Platt Lane with 25 senior coaches and God knows how many people around you, mate, you've done an amazing job. And since then, I'd like to think that, myself and yourself we've had a good solid relationship in regards to similar beliefs with the football.
Yep.
And we're both similar as people, as in, we're people, people's persons. So from your coaching journey, Temps, I've never really been able to have a conversation with you like that, because wherever we've been, we're either busy sorting players out, we're in a big office where people are over our shoulder. And sometimes, even though you're having a conversation, you're not having a conversation. You're being very thoughtful and, sceptical of what you say and who's around you. So, Adam Temple, the football coach, first team coach at Barrow, to get to where you are, obviously there's a lot of people who'd love to have the ambition to get where you are. So what I want to know is, and also to share for other people, is the journey. So where did it start? Why did it start? When did it start?
Well, yeah, it started, like I said, there through school. It was a GCSE PE. You had to do an element of it was coaching. So I went to coach my brother's team. I think he wants to take credit now for my coaching career that he launched it. But just helping out as a junior team. I'll say there's no level to the team. It was just a group of lads who played together, and I got in, did my kind of projects around it, but loved it. Loved coaching and grabbed that bug. And I think a lot of coaches who work academy side and kind of the journey we've had will have different backgrounds, and I think a lot will have played to a level. I played to a level and then realised really early that I wasn't going to be a footballer. Yeah. So my next best thing was going to be a coach. And that was obviously, that started through that at 14. I was then lucky to get work. Well, first off, I was a ball boy at Man United, and then got work experience at Man United, which was brilliant for me. 2 weeks of just going into the schools with a bag of balls with the rest of the coaches. And
how old was you then?
I would have been sort of in year 10, so probably like 15.
15?
Yeah. And a lot of them guys I'm still in touch with now, who obviously work there, but loved it. So I was going to go back. Used to go back in on Saturdays, used to go back in kind of half term and holiday time, just helping out, collecting money, getting the balls in, just watching, being around it, and loving it. And for me, that then was like the pinnacle, do you know what I mean? And then obviously left school at 16. Again, fortunately, there was an opportunity at Man United to become a YTS, but within coaching. So obviously, they're all YTS program. So you had the group of players, but I was on the different side for the community scheme as a coach. So I did that for 3 years, and then stayed obviously at Man United then for 15 years. That kind of launched me off really that time. But I always go back to that first one, that GCSE project of going, having a go and just loving it, loving being on there. And I said it wasn't anything fancy. It was just coaching and
But the thing is, though, going back to what you're saying there, before we get into anything else and where you've been and what you've done, you know, certain people in life who have a clear vision of where they want to go, certain people go above and beyond to develop themselves, to create opportunities, to learn, and they'll do it at times what is unsocial. They'll do it at times when you're 15, 16, you've got no money, so you're jumping on trains, you might even be on your bike. Because when I was 15, I was at, I did mine at Stockport County, football and community. Yeah. Yep. And still to this day, every coach would say, out of five out of 10, I'd say 5 of them I'm still in contact with.
Yep.
They support me still. We always go back to that point of me, you know, cleaning the cones up, stacking the vans, sitting on the front desk, doing the registers, first time holding money, being accountable for something, being responsible. And then parts are the parts what some people don't value to create the person who's on the grass.
Yeah.
Because you become more rounded as an individual. And go back to what you said in regards to when you see elite football, what you're in, the highest level of football is professional football. And everyone seems to think that you have to be a superstar footballer to be there. And for me, you don't. Because I think we're very similar as people, as in we're very humble, our feet are on the ground, you know. Doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what you've done. We're always going to tell you a bad joke. We're always going to try and, if there's an opportunity to take the piss out of you or vice versa, you gain for it. But it's how you are as a person which gains respect. And I think we're the same with that. I see a lot of people now in football who probably a little bit similar towards, you know, I never went on and played a first team game. I was given a football contract, but I never played a game. Yeah. Whereas there's other people out there who've played in Champions League finals, won World Cups, you know, people we've been around who you've been fortunate. But I think there's more and more people in the game who show that endeavour to be the best they can be and to work harder behind the scenes to get them opportunities. So then when they do get them opportunities, their work ethic and the amount of work they do off the pitch obviously creates level in their coaching. Whereas a lot of people living off the past, I've done this, I've done that, I've got the knowledge, well done. But it's how you deliver that knowledge, and to be able to deliver that knowledge, like you say there, you started at 15 doing this job. Being a footballer, being a football coach, it's 2 completely different things. Even though it's the same sport, on the same pitch, using the same balls, you're managing 22, 30 people. When you're a player, you're managing yourself.
I think it's one of them though for me. I think there's a real need, especially obviously in the academies, and you think back to when we were fortunate when we started, the blend of lads probably like us, and obviously you did more than me in terms of playing, but lads like us who were kind of career coaches, as such people call it, but equally having the ex-footballers who had that different approach and different knowledge. Like Alan Wright was someone I learned so much, and still learn so much off. I speak to him probably most weeks, and I used to sit with Wright like every week, half an hour, just going, come on, Wright, talk about 1v1, tell me about this. Like, he's got different ideas, and
story.
But he's someone who's done it at that top level.
He's a legend.
So you go, but I think like, in terms of his knowledge, and but then he probably would say that he didn't have the same kind of breakdown as that we might have had as coaches. We've been on the playgrounds, and I value that massive. And see, the key thing I think is you can't be what you're not. See, I can't pretend to be a footballer with, like, that's what I talk to Alex about now, like, with loads of references of league football, because I've not. So all I'm doing is every week is adding a reference of going, right, I've got, when we went through it the other week, like, we just went over 100 games, I'm going, brilliant, like, it's 100 references I've got now. But there's lads on our team who've got 500, 600, 700, so I can still learn off them in terms of those moments and how they adapt, but equally I've got something different in terms of my coaching element that I can add, and the way I look at football differently and break it down different. So they have done it and do it, but maybe don't know why and things. So I think there's a real need, I think, for both in terms of coaching, of lads who've been there and done it and played at the top level, and lads who have gone more down the coaching avenue. And if you get them two together and balance it off, I think that's when it's at its best.
I think what's key for me is it's not to say that someone who's played can't be the best at this.
Yeah.
They can.
Yeah.
100%. What it comes down to is how that person, that human being, the mindset, the willingness to learn, the honesty of where you're at, you know, accepting there's areas what you need to upskill. Being in that environment for so long, you will develop so much knowledge around so many things which some people won't get when they are practicing to become a coach and they get a playing career. But also as well, I think if you're hardworking and you're dedicated enough and you're mindful enough, honest to yourself, you can't think that you're here when you're there, and you can't think you know everything around this when actually you've only been exposed to this, this and this. And I do think until you've done something, you really do know about it. But when you have people around you who have, you can gain that knowledge, you can gain that insight. But that comes through, you know, being approachable, being coachable yourself in regards to letting other people educate you. The issue what you get sometimes is you know, you can get a bit of a view of disagreement. And I think in our game, in coaching, no matter what level you're at, someone who potentially has had various different experiences, playing, appearances, you know, you've got that solid football background there, but you've got to be able to connect. You've got to be able to deliver. You've got to be able to inspire, engage people. You've also got to have a variety of ways of delivering that, how that's communicated, knowing when to communicate it, knowing how to communicate it, reading other people's body language. Is this the right time to have that conversation? You know, and for me, it's like there's teachers now in football. There's people who've never played a professional game in their life at the highest level, managing and coaching now. And going back to where we were at the start, talking about your journey when you've done your work experience, listen to the way you're talking now, your open-mindedness, the way you self-assess. You know, I bet you've not always done that, but I bet what you've always tried to do is get better and better. So what's happened is you've evolved. So the temps I knew day one doing the session to the temps I know now, and your journey, your experiences, the good times, the tough times, the hard times. You've had your back against the wall. You've probably been in positions where you feel uncomfortable for a period. You've had positions where you're thriving. Like now I'm looking at you. You look happy. You know, you're passionate. You can see the fire burning in you. Do you know what I mean? But all them different things have got you to where you are. And going back to what you're saying is, where the journey starts, the journey has to start somewhere for everyone. Sometimes it'll be easier for some because you've done this. So you might have to prove yourself more in other ways. Turning up when you don't need to turn up. You know, asking questions. And for you, what's really interesting for me, and the reason why I wanted to get you on here, it's not just because you're working with players at the level you're working at, you know, it's the journey. And so
I think it's on that. It's a good point. I think those I think what your learning can look different. So my learning is different now as it was when I was 15, 16, just starting off, where I remember someone saying to me, I kind of still in touch with him now, and he said, it's all about learning techniques. I was like, I know. And I remember my first ever session with academy kids, I was probably like 17. And it was, I think we were doing like a step over or whatever it was. And I was like, right, and there's obviously some good players in that group. And I went out and I was like, right, step over, right foot, off we go. Demoed it, showed it. Kids went bam, bam. I'm like looking at the other coach going, they can do it. I was like, coach it. And I was like, right, do it left foot. And they were like, bam. It's like, do right foot, left foot. They were like, bam, bam. And he was like, I've got nothing to coach because I've been used to the playgrounds. And I was like, the learning from that moment was like, there's another step here, there's another level. And I remember saying like, I remember saying to one of the coaches going, what do you reckon? He was like, it's crap. And I was like, yeah, I know. And I took that feedback straight away. I said, but I didn't know what to do. And he's like, think about how you throw your shoulder, think about it. So then the level of detail was another level. Do you know what I mean? Where I think you get to a point where I watch so much football and every game I watch, I learn something. I've notes on my phone.
Critical.
Ridiculous. I'm like, boom, there's another thing I've either not seen before, I've seen it differently, and you learn so much. But then I think as I've gone on now for, say, 20 odd years, my direction of learning is different. So the last 2 years have been massively around like, lads, this is what I'm thinking. What are you feeling? Because the two things are really different, and that's probably the art, I think, between being an ex-footballer or not, is that one. Because I'm thinking this as a coach, you're feeling this as a footballer who's been there 700 times, and let's be in the middle and go, right, okay. And I'll do it about our lads all the time, especially from the back, and also about how we're pressing. Does that feel right for you? Does that distances of the goal? So we need to be a bit closer. Okay, let's do that. And I get so much more from that as opposed to being starting off session, key point 1, key point 2, but key point 3, which is obviously coaching.
Yeah.
My coaching's evolved, my learning's evolved now of what I'm looking at, where I'm learning, so my reflections and my thing. But I think it comes back to your people skills as a coach. If you've not got that, and that's again, we've always said, like, that first session, I remember it, like, I'd gone for the interview and gone through the formal bit of chat and whatever, and I'm like, brilliant. Yeah, you get a feeling. I think it's gone really well. This, Scott was one of them. Scott Sellers, like, connecting really well with him. Right, and I'd planned like 3 or 4 sessions that I'm like, right, whatever they asked me for, the job was under 12, whatever they asked me for under 12s, there's a game related, there's a possession, there's a technical, there's a whatever game-based practice, I've got it covered. And I planned so, I'd worked so hard at it. They're right, you've got the under 16s and you're doing 11v11, creating a score, whatever, a coach's score. So I'm like, I remember getting changed downstairs at Pat Lane, ripping up the session plans, going, right, I just got to connect with these kids and try and get them to do what I want. And I also think that's what got me through the session. That's what kind of gave a positive impact was my connection. I had the kids laughing, I had the kids competing, I put scores on it, and they were like, probably what I actually coached was probably basics, you know what I mean? But I show that connection, and that's ultimately what I think coaching is at any level.
Do you know what though, Tam? So I'm going to pull you back now. So let's go back to you developing you, yeah? Right? So we're talking about it, but let's go back. So you obviously worked at Manchester United for a bit in the community. As well as when you're in them roles, because I know through having a business and working in schools, managing staff, everyone thinks being a coach is just on the grass.
Yeah.
But preparation, there's logistics, there's managing people, there's going into thinking you've got 10, you've got 55, there's one bag of balls missing.
Yeah.
There's a bag of balls or cones or equipment, what you need, and you got to think on your feet. And for you over the years, how much of that time working in that role do you think you use in your day-to-day job of being a barrow, working with professional footballers, working with a management team, also being an assistant, which is a different role itself in football. Them skill sets, that knowledge, that experience, how much of that do you think you use from the start of you being in playgrounds, probably nurseries, international players, colleges, then having your own team of people delivering and you managing them? How much of that do you think you use in your job day to day?
So much. And I look back at it and I laugh, like, so much. I always say, like, coach, obviously, I do quite a bit of talks like with university and stuff, and they ask about work this player, work with that player, and well, you ask the wrong questions because they're like the bits that obviously the byproducts of working at big clubs and top academies, but work the player as an advice coach, work the playground. So I took so much from that around how do you get the kid who's not interested one bit in football, how do you still connect with him and get him out of that kind of enjoyment out of it. The best ever learning experience I had, I did about 6 months. I was in prison for 6 months. I worked at Forest Bank Prison, like going in twice a week.
Well, you said I was in prison.
Also, I always say that to you, and people what? But I worked there for like 6 months, on like we were delivering like a coaching leadership course, and it was like a formal FA course, and it was like classroom in the morning, and then we did an outdoor session. Two massive like moments to learn I got from it. The first one was in a classroom. They come in, and something happened like the night before. Whatever, the lads were bouncing. I remember again looking and I had this session plan. Planning's like, for me, it's a non-negotiable. You've got to plan whatever you're doing. You've got to plan. See your notes you've planned for today. Like, you're organised. That's what coaching is. It's a non-negotiable. You've got to do that. So I planned my session, I'm like, ready to go. I walked in, I just looked at him, I was like, I've got no chance at here. And I thought, what do I do? I can try and force this kind of theory-based session that I've got with him. Or I went, right, okay, I've got this, lads, I'm not going to do it. Ripped it up in and like all that. So if you think Man United are better sit there, I think Man City are better sit there. We're having a debate. And I got him like, from being like all over the place to calm and like kind of debating around, yeah, but United done this, yeah, but City that. And some of it was banter, some of it was serious. But I was like, I took loads from that of going, I've got my plan, but you've got to be adaptable as well and bend that. And that'll be us now where, right, next week I know we're doing this and this, and we have a great result, so we go, so we're going to ease off a little bit and give them a bit more fun. Or we've had a bad result and they're expecting like a full or low, like, let's just bring it right down again. So adapting, I think, is a massive part of it. The other one was, I joined a session, all 5-a-side on the outside, in the prison again. And one lad said to me, I turned around and I went after him. I was like, I forget where I am here, like, but the respect I got from that of like, no, I'm going to stand up for myself here. I'm going to communicate in a way that I'm going to bring it back to, I'll respect you, but you've got to give it back. And dealing with that as a bloke to bloke was massive in terms of going into this role now of, I'm coaching big kids now. That's a difference. Like, they're just bigger kids, but build that respect and that ability to communicate and demand of people while still being humble and open and them expect things of you as well. I think so important. But
I think, you know, for me, I'm gonna put this out there. You know, I've seen some people work in schools. I've seen people work in nurseries, colleges, youth offending teams. I've seen people work in professional football clubs as managers, coaches, strength conditioning coaches, various different roles. And some of the best leaders, coaches, mentors aren't in football, you know. And for me, what I'm saying is where a lot of people gain that skill set isn't when they're in their prime role.
Yeah.
It's the journey to get there. Yeah. And some people want to go from here to there. If you and the reason why I want to talk to you is if you look at the next generation of football coaches, right? What's different for us? There was no Instagram.
Yeah.
Facebook wasn't even alive. YouTube was just coming alive, but you was hardly on it, right? Yeah. So it was around the ones who really wanted it would go out the way to develop themselves.
100%.
I've gave tens, like, God knows about opportunities to people to go, look, come here, come and watch this. Come and be on my shoulder for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And we might be able to do something for you, yeah? But if money's not involved, they don't want to know.
Yeah.
So they're not that hungry to get where they want to go.
Yeah.
Whereas I talk about my journey when I was first coaching, when I was at Crewe, I was 15, 16. And the reason I started coaching was because they didn't want me to join in the session in the evening. So what I used to do was I used to go back and lace balls around the training ground after my group train. Yeah. But I was just pinging my hammy, calf, whatever it was. So I got thrown in. But I had to do that for like 12 months for nothing. But even though I was getting paid money to be a player, I was enjoying that more than what I was being in the playing environment, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But that time of me giving my time up, even though at first it was on my doorstep, when I left Crewe, I had to go back there. That was a 45-minute journey 3 times a week. So I'd get there early, an hour before, 2-hour session, then half an hour after. That's 5 hours in a day I used to give up 3 times. 15 hours in a week I used to give up. And that was to be on the shoulder of Steve, Dario, Neil Critchley, James Collins, Lee Bell, whoever else it is now. Yeah. And I don't see enough of that.
Yeah.
I see, I want this and I want to get from there to there as fast as I can. But the problem is, if you don't do that process properly and you're not really honest to yourself of where you're at, because I look back to me being the guy who left Blackburn to go to City, and I look at myself now, I'm nowhere near the person what I am now. Got nowhere near the knowledge what I've got now. My assessment of people, the way I engage with people is completely different. I don't even think I was mindful of it then.
Yeah.
Whereas now, through life, and through experience and through, like you say there, the playgrounds, the holiday camps, the sessions where everything's going wrong.
Yeah.
People aren't turning up. You've got 55 people on your own because there's a traffic jam in a school on a field where the grass is bigger than you. Like, they're the moments where, do you know what? It's not just about you being a good coach, but you can solve the problem.
Yeah.
And obviously moving forward in your career now, like you say, you're working day to day with professional footballers. So then the next step for you then on your coaching journey was, you've obviously been coaching, you're working in the schools, you've worked in a program for, you know, it was an elitist program. I mean, not elite, it was a well-renowned program what Man United soccer schools used to do.
Yeah.
I think they were the ones who really put the marker in the area in regards to community stuff and investment. So then, first role in academy football was at?
Was older. Well, I worked at the pre-academy United, and I was at the same time. So my role was really varied at United, where I worked the girls' teams, I worked Disability Centre of Excellence. That opened up an opportunity with the FA, where I worked the Disability National Teams. So the FA put me on my A licence, which was the old style A licence, where it was 2 weeks intensive. And again, go back to learning. Like, I remember going on that and going, the first 2 weeks coming back and going, I'm miles off here. Like, the level the rest of the coach were at. I was coaching under 8s and no 11v11 whatsoever, purely technical program. I'm looking, going, I don't know. Like, when they, you know, like in a coach ed session, and they stop it, like, it was taking them to say something for me to go, right, yeah, I get it. So I understood what they were talking about, but wasn't seeing it. And that's where I think I'd hopefully now, if I was in a session now, I think when they stopped it, I'd see where they're gonna go where, because the game's evolving in front of you. So I came back from it, I thought, I need to do something here. So 2 things that happened on that. Again, going back to this extra and more, and I started working with universities. And that was a paid role, but it was end of my day's work on a Monday. I went and did like 3 hours coaching. And I did where I did like two teams or 3 teams, whatever it was. And I worked through every effort. The FA had the old session titles, you know, every one of them. I worked for every single one of them across the year just to practice 11v11. And it's brilliant for me. I got paid money from it, but it was out my way. I was going at the end of my day working 3 hours, getting home at 9:30, 10. But it was so valuable. And then I spoke to Mick Priest, I'd worked with at United with the young ones, and he was head of coach at Oldham. I was telling him what was happening. He said, "Well, come here." He said, "I don't know what." He said, "But I can give you, like, you'll get different experience over the seasons." So, right, okay. So I finished doing the under 8s. I was getting paid more money at United to under 8s. Yeah, brilliant. My club, like, on my door. So I do my day job, go with the under 8s, brilliant, no problem. He used to be like Superman and finish my day job with the community stuff. Go in the office, get changed into my Oldham kit, out the door, drive to Oldham, go and do sessions there. So I worked 2 years at Oldham, but got all like 18 months. But got so many experiences. I was like 12's lead, I was 14's assistant, I was 16's covering. Like, you drive, you know, it's like clubs like that. You're driving in and they ring you, go, "Can you stay tonight and do the 15s?" Yeah, no problem. Stay and do the 16s. I went in one Christmas. Yeah, I'm going in just watching over the Christmas period. I was off work, so I went and watching Tony and Mick Priest work. Paul Dickoff got sacked that day with Paul Butler. I know Butler's really well now. So I'm sat there in my kit, like in the old foyer at Oldham, like, they're walking out of the boxes, I'm going, and they're looking at me, going, "Who's he?" And then Tony has to take the first team. Mick took the Rees, attempted to take the 18s. Yeah, no problem. So I ended up doing a session there with that, and that led to more opportunities. So just got so much from it, but it was like so much removed from what I'd been used to at Man United. Facilities, kit, equipment, all that stuff, money. Totally removed from it. We used to drive a minibus to away games or whatever, but loved it. Got so much from it, and that developed me so much more.
But then also, so you've got the football, then you've also got that versatility as a person.
Yeah.
Some people haven't got that, and the higher you go up the chain in regards to pressure and performance, like expected, you'll have such a vast amount of like different personalities, different people in your groups. And if you're not open-minded and you're not versatile and you're not flexible, then along the way, you're going to come across a situation where you either don't understand it, you don't know how to solve it. The more you are like that as a person, I find this now, yeah, because I'm fortunate to speak to people all over the world, day in, day out. The more variety you have, as in the way you approach situations, the more opportunities you got to solve the problem. So going back to your role at Oldham, I bet you was the kit man some days. You was the fucking, doing the ball, doing the cones, doing the registers. You've even every now and again, I know obviously now with welfare and all the rest of it, you had to pick someone up because they're at a bus stop. They missed the bus, they've missed the train.
Even physio, which is madness. I'm thinking now, we used to have a physio at home, but not away. And what I noticed with a group, and we were working with one of the groups, when we had a physio, the kids were always on the floor. When they're away, we never got injured. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put a rule in now that if you're hurt, do not move. Stay still, the physios will look after it. If you're hurt in an away game, I'll come on and we'll look after it. Their physio will come and look after you. But if you're not, get up. Because if your physio comes on, you're going to come off. And even for 30 seconds. And because it was mad that the kids, like you say, when you've not got something. So at Oldham, we used to train on something in a third of a pitch. But we still got loads of good work in. We just adapted to it where you went to City and I was guilty of it, like, pitch, we'll get half a pitch, we're inside, and you go, like, I'd say I've been somewhere where you've got that much space now, so your adaptability becomes so much. So when you've not got it, you think, and that was the kids, like, the court was on the floor, I was like, no problem, come off. And it stopped, and like, the physios would go up when they're hurt, they don't move. They say, or they cry, the physio needs to go on anyway. When they're not, they learn to get up, and that little conditioning one there was brilliant. I'm not saying, like, kids shouldn't be injured, because sometimes it happens, but I've got a physio, and the kids enjoy that kind of, look at me, because I see it on the TV, they're getting treatment and whatever, and I was like, no, just get up. So it was great. It was like I say, got loads from that, and adaptability. Actually, my first one with kit, like, when Mick coming out to my house, so we give me this big, massive bin bag of kit. I'm like, I put it down in the living room, I'm like, I don't need all that, what's all that for? I went, no, find something that fits, and bring the rest back tomorrow. So I remember going like this blue jumper, black pants, whatever it was. I walked in, the lad I was working with had grey and black on, and he had blue and blue on, and it was like, what's going on? And it was like, it's just what it is. You're not doing it for that.
But do you know what though, Temps, for me, and I'll say this, and you'll know this now, like, we've both been in this situation where there's like bottomless budgets in football clubs. You've got the best of the best. You've got too much of the best of the best, right? There's too much what people can have, what they don't need. Yeah. And, from me being at county, being at Crew, going round wherever over the years, and still go around, not just football clubs, but some other sporting organisations what are elite, what don't have the finance to have facilities, kit, equipment and stuff. Yeah. Like, you still get the work done. It's a shell. Yeah. We all want to look the part, we all want to act the part, and I think it helps. But what you do find is, and I'm sure Oldham at the time, League 1, League 2, when you were there, they've not got millions of pounds. Yeah. So they're probably investing the bare minimal to get the biggest bang for the buck. Yeah. But what it comes down to is, I've seen university coaches, college coaches, who, do you know what? They're amazing coaches, and the job they do with the children they have or the players they have comes through what you drive and what you do, making the most out of the situation you have. You see some other people who have everything, but they blame other people for certain things. Do you know what? You got to work with what you got. Yeah. Your pitch, your weather, the group you've got, you haven't got the right kit. It's not the end of the world. At least someone's still on the pitch.
I think that's part of it, though, in terms of, I always say we were fortunate when we come through as coaches that, like I would say, like I had a plan till I was about probably 30, 31 around my qualifications, where I wanted to be by a certain age. I was passed my A licence by the age of 30, which I did just about. I wanted to do it, like, and that was all my learning prep. But then when I started, like, I wouldn't have had the thing when I started coaching at 16 to go, I want to be a youth team coach, because that was like so far away removed from where I was. Because it was United, there was 5 full-time coaches, massive club, 5 full-time youth coaches, Paul McGuinness, Tony Whelan. No, I won't even add them. This is going well back. This was like 98, 99. Paul McGuinness, Tony, Neil Bailey, Dave Williams, and Eric Harrison kind of would be around it all between the first. Jim Ryan was around that, but was linking with reserves. So you like them 5, like the top people. So that was so far removed. Where now, if you think now, we go to City, we had two full-time coaches for everything from under 8s, under 7s, through to and more. I was at the youth cup final the other week. I was looking. I was going, they've got like triple the amount of staff we have on a match day.
Right.
So it is, and that's the world. That's fine. There's no problem with that. But the accessibility now for which is great because there's loads of opportunities. But equally, the learning around stage by stage about being happy to do a playground session. These young coaches I speak to now.
Well, let me wouldn't do it, yeah. Because I'll say this. Big thing is the badge on the chest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I go to Sainsbury's, take Ruben to wherever he plays, whatever league he's in. I go for a bite to eat with the missus, and I see people walking around with the badge on, with their initials on, at 8 o'clock at night on a Sunday evening. I see him walking around, which is fine, right?
Yep.
Listen, you're working hard, you've got yourself to a point. But having a badge on your chest does not give you credibility.
Yeah.
And when you sit down with someone and talk, you really do find out where they're at.
Yeah.
Because I could sit down with someone without seeing them on a pitch, and their knowledge and the way they talk about what they want to do, you know this guy switched on.
Yeah.
This girl switched on. She knows what she's talking about.
It's I think what you're doing it for. Like, it's bad because both of them, we've got initials of both of them, but that's the world you're in. And I see it loads, like people want that initial because it means something. Like Pete, obviously Pete's a manager at Barrow now. We worked with an old Pete for 20 odd years. We met doing like the Disability League on a Friday night at the Cliff. Like, just because he worked for Oldham, I worked for United, we just have banter, we just have a chat, the kids are playing, and we were like having a crack. And then we worked together quite a bit over the years doing like different projects, a lot of it disability based. And we did one, the Northwest Cerebral Palsy Squad, and it was like getting that going. And Pete like has hated this thing about initials, like he's got this real thing about it. As I was, again, so all the different roles, I was organised all the staff kit. So I did the audit with whatever it was with, did the staff kit. And I took his to sports direct and put his initials on it. And he was the only one. No one else did. And he went mad. He was like, we laugh about it now, but it was that craving for that. He was the opposite. Everyone's looking, going like, so I know, but you see other teams and start putting their initials on it. And I'm laughing my head off going, like, I didn't have mine and the rest of the physio or whatever didn't have theirs on. Just him with his on. He went and bought another one just because he didn't want to be seen like that. And it's that kind of, that needs it to be what you perceived as rather than what you are.
But I know you, yeah. I know you, and I know many other people like you. You don't put the kit on and look in the mirror and go, you're putting the kit on just to get to where you need to be to do your job.
Yeah. I think there's a pride.
There's pride in it.
Yeah, there's a pride in it, and that's not like no problem, but it's going like, it's enough just to be, and you roll it as a coach, it's like it sounds daft, but like to serve almost, not to be seen. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to be for pictures. I'm looking through. I was taking ages like last night because I was looking like I've got loads of seen pictures, and I'm not on half like most of them. All the pictures I was working someone else up because I was never, obviously you have the year one that you're on, but I was never your team like you want to show them whatever and you're on it. I was like, no, leave the kids. That's the kids. That.
Well, what I'm saying is, my point is, that's an analogy of what I'm saying is, respect is earned through what you do. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, with the reason I'm talking is the next generation of coaches. Yeah, I'm saying you can wear whatever badge on your chest you want.
Yeah.
What it comes down to is your delivery.
Yeah.
You know, your connections, the respect you get, not because you got a badge on your chest.
Yeah.
The respect you get through how you deal with people.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. That's it. So for me, you know, and I've said this before, is you look at what we've been speaking about, where you started, how you started, the journey you've got to, the job you had at Oldham, how many different experiences, how many times you had to think on your feet. You probably might have had one piece of clothing with Oldham on your chest and the rest was something else at some point. Because I was at Crew. Yeah, like literally, like I remember once they gave me socks and they were like, I thought they were canoe socks, mate, because they were ankle socks and they come up to over my knees. Like, but I had to wear them. I still had to wear. That was the kit. There wasn't, oh, it doesn't fit me.
Yeah.
You know, you had to throw that kit on. That was your kit.
I've lost it. I need a new one.
You know, like I've lost it, you know, or replace it, or I've grown out of that, or whatever it was. That was your kit for the year.
Yeah.
So moving forward then, obviously, you've been at Oldham, you've got some amazing experiences, you've built up a fantastic reputation as a youth developer, you've got a lot of people talking about you as an individual around, lots of potential to go on and do various things in football. Because even though you're a coach, you know, which way do you want to go?
Yeah.
Is it academy stuff? Is it pre-academy? Is it first team? Is it women? Is it men's? You know, and for you, when you left Oldham, you know, where did you see yourself? Because I remember you coming to City, it was the under-12s position what you ended up taking. Was that an area you really wanted to get into, as in regards to them ages? Or was that something for you where you wanted to work up to then work with first team football?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've seen what I've done now is that I never, whilst I had a plan in terms of qualifications and being ready to be, and I wanted to be, one of my ambitions was to work in football full time, in terms of coaching role. Because again, for me, that had been hard to access. Obviously, probably a touch easier now, but that had been hard to access. So that was like the ultimate goal sort of thing. So working at Oldham, and then obviously the opportunity at City came up, which was under 12s, which I kind of been working around those age groups, and I enjoyed it. Enjoyed the transition into 11 side. Enjoyed the connection with like, the kids, where they were like just developing personalities as going to high school. The first year at high school, there was loads of challenges around that.
So the first year of St. Bede's?
Yeah. So so it was always that. It wasn't just purely a football, and there's always a little bit extra in terms of the off the pitch one, which I quite enjoyed as well. Probably because of my background and what I'd done previously. So I was really happy. I think in terms of being like under 12, and probably at that point when I go back, I was probably I want to be an expert, and then gradually over time doing it, I was like, well, what does that actually mean? It doesn't mean anything. There's no such thing. And I was told, probably many of us were told, like, we think you're the best in the country. I remember going back saying, well, I'm the best in the world. So because how would you prove it? There's no Ballon d'Or or whatever for under 12 coaching. Like, I'm not an expert. You don't know if there's a lad who works at Exeter who's unbelievable working with less as a good
platform.
Yeah, my probably I look at my best ever season was at Oldham. The group at Oldham where we had one lad's gone on and had a career out of that group, but where we got the group in terms of a week, because a few of us working around that group, like where we got to as a group, and the kids obviously had talent, but they weren't the most talented. As I say, like there's one who's gone on and kicked on. But that's my best ever season in terms of coaching, having impact, having connections, and seeing where the kids could go.
Right. Listen to what you're saying there. It's so refreshing to hear it, honestly, because when I have these conversations with people a lot of the time, whether it's me going into a club consulting, whether it's me just meeting someone for a brew and having a chat, success and being, gaining, what's the word? So being successful in them roles isn't just making footballers, right? When you're in and around a group of people day in, day out, like, they've all got strengths, they've all got weaknesses, and they've got areas to improve, like in different areas, haven't they? And when you're on that journey, I think of your football season this year. Yeah. When did you start with Barrow this year? When was day one? Like
June, it's like mid-June, I think we're
June. What we in now?
Yeah, I don't know. We're in May.
What we in May?
Yeah, it's nearly a year.
So, right. So you've been on a wheel.
Yeah.
Day in, day out. Same people, same conversations, on the bus, off the bus, in the hotels. Few problems there, few disagreements there, some great times there. But going back to the kids, what I'm saying is, when you take them kids on day one to that time period when you finish at the end of the year, you're not done with them kids.
Yeah.
Because your relationships are so strong with them kids. I see some of them kids now who are 9, 10, 11, and they're playing wherever they're playing in the world.
Yeah.
Champions League finals, winning the Premier League, whatever it is. And my level of care is still like up here. But the biggest thing, what I love to see, is seeing them grow as people.
Yeah.
Because the football is the football. We do that every day.
Yeah.
But getting someone who might be a bit loose around the edges, getting someone who's not as disciplined, and through the way you've worked, operated, planned, It's not just off the cuff. You know, assessed to deliver your program, but also deliver how you can make them the best person they can be. That is more valuable for me as an academy coach, because the level's the level, isn't it, mate?
I think even that, we were sort of off camera before about lads that aren't the big names that people won't recognise, and still having that same connection with those. Because I spoke to like Jez Frimpong the other week, spoke to Jez, and I sent me a message on after they won the league and all that. But that only came about through another lad who's in the group, who's not at that level, but we've been trying to help him out. He's been training with us and trying to help him out now. We talked about it before, like, so everyone wants to, like, as a coach, you go, well, I did this, I made him, and you don't, like, I always challenge the word producer. I don't think clubs produce players, because I say production is Coca-Cola or companies like that, where if you do this and you do put this and this, it makes that. So if it was production, City'd have a Phil Foden and a Cole and a Rico and others, like, coming through. United have a Rashford and a Welbeck and all them boys, like, coming through every year, because you do this and this. It's looking at that and going, right, that talent is there. I said there's one lad, I'll say name, like Terry Sinclair, who's kicked on out that group. Like, so yeah, so he's like, he's bounced back on different. He's had a different journey, but he's in a really good moment now, and I think he'll kick on again. But there's other lads in that group, and what I remember bumping into one. I was at a gig, and obviously I love the music. I was there having a few beers, whatever, and he come over to me, and at first you don't recognise him. It was like you're talking 10 years before. Obviously they've grown. Like, I remember as like little kids. So he says to me, he said, you know what, that season I loved it. He said it was the best season I've ever had in football. He was still playing like kind of non-league level. It's the best season ever, and that meant so much, as much more to me as the lads who've gone on and done the things that they've done. And you go, well, I did this with him, and I did this with Cole, and you do a tiny bit, don't you? You try to help them, you try and guide them. Often with them lads, them ultra talented lads, the stuff you help them with isn't really the stuff on the pitch. It's keeping them on track. It's keeping the fire burning. It's keeping like that. You know, so it's the other lads that you forget about them that aren't the glamorous to talk about. That's what I'll pride myself on as much. That lads reach out to me who are still doing it at the top level, but lads who aren't, I still have them reach out to me.
What you've got to remember is, Temps, as well as, and I still have this now, that time what you have with some of them players or children, that is the most powerful time in their week where they develop as human beings. Because they might not get it at home. The people around them, away from football, don't carry the same morals, the same principles. They're probably not as consistent. They're probably not as honest. Not always, but I've had it where I've had a boy who's been in an environment at home, and he's been in an environment when he's been with us at the club. We're taking him abroad, we're travelling, all the rest of it. And from the day one, when we get him, to the end of the week when we've been away, his whole behaviour, his attitude, his body language, his open-mindedness, it's changed completely. And whether they've won the tournament or not, or they played well, do you know what? To be able to come back and to shape people like that, because they'll always remember, when I'm around him, I had to behave like this. When I was around him, I was expected to do that. So success, going back to what I'm saying, and being a successful coach isn't around, come on, let's name the names. First group when you was at City. Go on.
Cole Palmer, played for you
at Chelsea.
Tommy Doyle, he's gone to
Tommy Doyle.
Wolves full time. Louis Fiorini, Taylor Bellis, Nathan Broom, or at least we're out there, I'm going to think.
Ty Dolan,
Chanka Zimba. Trying to think who else in that group.
Go on. So then, you don't have to name them all, but then bounce through the groups you had.
The next one was like McAtee, CJ, Egan Riley,
Hodgie,
Sam Bellis. We had Sam with us this year. Benny was a one to the group. Benny forgot from that. I'll be in trouble if I forget him. James Trafford came in the back end of that. It's loads. There's so many. Like,
my point is so me and George, funny enough, were talking about this. So on the way in, I said, even though there's a football club where you're working at, the club employ people to do various roles. Now, you go to some football clubs and they'll produce one unbelievable player once every 2-3 years. That could be down to recruitment, resources. Sometimes you get someone landing your doorstep. Sometimes it's because you have one person in that football club who is really good at what they do, whether they're Conference, League 2, League 1, wherever they go. Now, the club we was at the time, Manchester City, you know, as well as it being Manchester City is in the first team and they're doing this, that and the other, I'd like to think at certain points, we had people who were unbelievably good with people.
Yeah.
Like, they had the experience, the knowledge of the coaching. They were really mindful of so much more than just the football. And where the success consistently comes, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is because of the culture, the program.
Yeah.
You know, the investment
Yeah.
was a big part. And for you as an individual then, so your time at City, obviously you've dealt with some of the world's best talent. You know, don't forget that. You know, I say that to people all the time. You know, spoke Craig Wood today. He's doing what he's doing at City now, you know, with the under-21s. And he's seen some of them kids from 6, 7, 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the way you've managed them players along the way, you will have relationships with them players for the rest of the time. They might come to you when things aren't right. They might come to you when they need a bit of advice. The parents might come to you, you know. And that's because you're respected. And the reason I wanted to bring you on here was not for you to just tell people who you've coached and what you've done is. I think what's really key is knowing how to do that job.
Yeah. I think it's the massive one I would say is went to City, and I can't remember one of the first days, and someone give me a tactics board, and I never really used one. I was like, what's that for? I did in the 12s, like thinking from what I'd been at Oldham. Oldham was a very similar program to what I'd been at United. And then so I was like, okay. And I remember we probably spoke about it, like that first 6 months or probably 3 months anyway, that first part of that season, I was like, wow, this is different. There were another level. It's like when I was at A-License, again, like there's another level here. There's another level of detail. And it's like, well, where'd you go to? Going back to what I was talking about before, what's you go to now? Of like, I know I bring, but he does this and he does that. And I used to watch everything. I remember like someone was doing a session, I was there watching it because it was like under 9s or it was Chase with 18s or whatever it was. I was out there watching it. 21s obviously were at Carrington, weren't they? But I'd go and watch the games, go and watch the women's team, go and watch women's training, like, because I thought there's loads of learning there. You can take so much from it. But then as I grew into that, so that's my first approach was probably going back was, right, I got to learn. And that first open, like, right, I've got to learn. And then I've got to go, right, now where do I fit? And I think sometimes people want to go in like, yeah, you do this. And I saw other people do this, right? But I'm this. And then it's harder to adapt then. I think if you learn and you watch and you adapt to people around you, then you're right, okay. And then I grew into what I was. So I was different to a lot of the coaches around me at the age groups I was working at. But I brought something different.
If you look at, though, going back to what I'm saying, where the success, right? Success breeds success.
Yeah.
As in, if you have an elite players, there has to be elite people behind to create elite players now. And it's like, the more people you get invested into growing and learning, you're going to keep creating elite mindsets, high performers, yeah? So you look at the people around you. Jason Wilcox now has got probably one of the most powerful jobs in the world.
Yeah.
You know, at Manchester United, I'm sure he'll do a great job there. You know, Patrick Vieira was in the building at the time, World Cup winner, starting out in his coaching journey. But you know what? For someone who's in his role in comparison to a lot of other people who's had his experience, the way he was to open, you know, to people like us,
so humble one,
who we haven't got that playing background, but the respect of knowing what we've done as coaches to get us to where we were. You know, I'll say this, Cush, for me, is someone who started in the playground, sitting in the community, recruiting kids in schools, you know, to now being New York City's manager. You know, Rob Edwards, come in, you know, part-time, doing bits and bobs, literally coming to watch me with the under-9s, 10s, 11s with a pen and paper. He's a manager of Luton. You know, and these are people who would have took from you. And there's many more who've gone and come on, the famous man himself, Danny Walker.
Yeah.
You know, what a guy.
Yeah.
You know, one of the most intense people I ever met in my life, who was just dedicated to get where he is now.
Yeah.
You know, and I take my hat off to him. But what I'm saying is, them people would have had an influence on you, because when I look back, when I've not been in the full-time model recently like yourself, I've had a lot of time to reflect.
Yeah.
And you go, actually, do you know what? You might have been a bit intense, but do you know what?
Yeah.
You know?
You see, I think I was probably aware of that, and my big one, especially probably around the time, so I was like with Matt Burton, Danny Walker, so Rick was with me. Carlos came in with me as well. Yeah.
Know what I mean?
Danny also was around that age group. Was obviously me in between that, and I was like, these, and probably Berto and Danny were relatively similar. And I was like, I'm different, but how do I work with the same kids in my way with the same output? So like the number one was intensity. I think that's when we look back at it, the intensity of what we did. And the kids will probably talk about that, the kids, the lads will talk about that now. Everything was intense, everything had some meaning. Yeah. And I think that was a thing that we provided for them, that training was always at it. They were always, we used to do a lot of like mixed groups between kind of 12s, 13s, 30s, whatever it was. Yeah, and it was brilliant for them, because you had 1 year they were struggling, and then next year they were leading. Do you know what I mean? So there was always like that kind of that transfer between the bottom of the group.
What I used to like about your phase at that time as well was you were really mindful of, like, when you'd done your games, so you do it on bio-banding in regards to chronologically, biologically where they were at, birthdays.
Even from that, like we did that like technical level or actual level of performance. So you
athleticism.
Yeah, I remember we did a game like, so it would be like Macca, the Hodge, and they were tiny, weren't they, at 12, at 12. But we played a 14s game, we put them in, and we put like some of the better 13s in. And it was brilliant, like it was like a real mixture of abilities and whatnot. We did that for a few years, where like Charlie McNeil, Luke and Betty were more physically dominant 12s. We played them as in a 14 mixed 12s, 13s, 14s against the 14s. And they were some of the best things we got. And I think one game we won 1-0, one game we lost 2, whatever it was. But it was more what came out of it. Do you know what I mean? That you went, yeah, we see some air. So it's being creative. It's not just going. I think it was easy for us, and probably when you're at these big clubs, to go, oh, we won 6-0 today and we're great. Like, it's wanting that little bit more. How do we test them? How do we stretch them?
But then also it's like, you know, what's so refreshing for me hearing this with you, because I've always known you like this, and being able to speak to you like this away from wearing a badge on our chest, always behind us, is, you know, you're constantly looking to test them. Yeah. You're constantly looking to learn more about them as players, as people, collectively what they're like in a team. And if you're not mindful and you're not brave enough we're doing this, we're probably going to take a knock at the weekend, right? Yeah. But you know what? It's not even about the result. It's about people's reactions when the back's against the wall. And do you know what? He's coped 10 times better this week because we've been doing this all week.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's because we'll probably experience this towards the back end of it, where you want to test them, but it's being appropriate with the test. Well, if they're not ready for that, it's not just throwing them into it. Like we McAtee's group, I remember, like it was like Macca, it was Hodgie, Sam Bellis, Traff was in it around that. I remember like probably we moved to CFA around the back end of it. I remember having a conversation with Berto, with Rodo around, we need to stretch these as much as we can. We need to they've not lost for about
winning the nationals.
So went to the equivalent of the Truce finals, and we didn't win it, but we didn't lose again. So we drew and we went out goal difference or whatever. Like so we won then there's like the play competition. We won the play. They need to experience them losing this group. They need to stretch them. So we were like looking for a challenge. And then Danny organised some fixtures. I think it was Cambridge, and he stitched me up. To be fair, he'd admit it now. So I was like,
not like him.
I was like, you have told him that. I think we had said, right, we'll play their 13. So you told them that we were playing 12s. He was like, yeah, I've got their 13s and 14s are coming, and it ended up their 14s and 15s because they were thinking, well, we're match. So they brought their older age groups. So we ended up playing the 12s against the 14s, and Cambridge 14s at the time were like really good group. Absolute giants come out. I remember seeing them like walk out across the pitches.
Yeah, there's colour.
I'm going, these are getting like, they're getting bigger and bigger. Going, big as me. Like you could see the group, and they were tiny. Like that group had no physicality in the group. I'm like, right, okay, it's gonna be tough. I went 2-0 down after 5 minutes. Remember, like Rodo and Mark Allen used to watch in like 15, 20 minutes, go to the next game. So they're watching our game first. Literally 5 minutes in, we're 2-0 down. I'm thinking, oh my God. That little bit of as good as Rodo was, you felt like pressure to do well when he was watching. So I'm like, oh God, but I was like, so we're playing well. It's just like, we got overrun the first one. It's a header for the second one.
It's the intent.
So I was like, but I think we lost that game 3-2. And I caught it, like, Rodo stayed the whole game. And he came over to it and he said, I never watched a full game. I said, I always like to watch. He said, but that was brilliant. That's exactly what this group needed. Because like they came back, I think we got back to 2-2 and they ended up losing. So it really, like, academy football it really mattered that they'd not lost for it. I remember some of the parents going, oh, they've not lost for 18 months. So like, yeah, but they took more from that than probably a lot of what they've had the last 18 months. So it was again, that wasn't strictly by design. We wanted to play a year up.
Yeah.
Ended up playing 2 years up, which physically was probably a bit of a step.
Yeah.
But actually what we took from it, and how the kids had to adapt and learn, and how they shown that fighting spirit that they weren't just winning because they were strutting about, they had a style of play.
Yeah.
They were winning because they had some grit, and there's a bit in, we'll get some kids out of this group. Some kids will kick on because...
Group. So, in your career, how long have you been coaching now?
24, 25 years.
So, 24, 25 years. Along that journey, for me, I know exactly in my mind who inspired me, supported me, helped me, people who probably looked up to a little bit on the journey. Is there anyone in particular, over your period of time at different points who have really stood out as people who've shaped you or helped support you to be the best you can be in your coaching roles?
I think there's loads. And I think my big one is that you can learn from everyone.
Yeah.
You take things from everyone. I've been fortunate, obviously, to work with some like people who you say are the world class. Do you know what I mean? The best at what they do. But equally, I think from the off, really, probably like the majority of the lads in the community scheme, where I think it's Dave Ryan who led the community scheme, but like lads like Trevor Dwyer Lynch, who worked my first team with, my first team with one of the girls' teams. Andy Smith, who obviously works at City as well, on the other side, on the club side. Obviously Mick Priest, there's loads of guys who I worked with then that were massive influences for me in terms of me starting off as a coach. But then obviously within that, I used to watch a lot of people. So I used to watch Paul McGuinness, be like, yeah, I'm really fortunate now that I can lean on Paul a lot, go and have a coffee and we'll talk about it. And Paul's like, he just obsessed, like still to this day, obsessed. So Tony Whelan's someone that, while I've never worked directly for Tony, I've always had the relationship with, that I've always asked his advice when I was older and they were thinking about finishing the academy. I went and had a coffee with Tony and talked about different opportunities. When I was finishing at City, I went and had lunch with Tony and talked. So there's like obviously loads of people from the United days. Rennie Mullenstein's one that people would jump out at, that in terms of him coming in. He said about interviews, like my interview, there's a load of staff that he was like probably quadruple that on the balcony at the cliff, everyone watching, and he was just like so confident and so like assured in what he did. And he brought in people say like, it was free and it was open. It wasn't. It was like really kind of direct, and this is what we do. You take players on. No matter where you're on the pitch, you're taking players on, or you combining around them, or you try to score. Like, it was very directive, do you know what I mean? But he was for the first one in that sense that gave me that, this is what a programme looks like. And then obviously going to Oldham, Mick was massive for me. Someone, a mate, do you know what I mean? I worked with him, alongside him, but then now he's my boss, but I still had that kind of relationship with him. But took loads to give that opportunity, and he really shaped that 2 year period, I think, of me turning into a...
What about when you when you come to City?
I don't know. Again, everyone. I think, especially when that first period when I started, when it was every age group, you look at it going top. Like, so I'd watch Muddy and Daddy do the under nines. Even too, like Daddy's at Leicester with the first team, Muddy's at 21s at Man City. But they were doing the under nines at the time, and it shows like that progression that sometimes you need to have. Kush was working with me obviously at that time, and then went into the women's team. Maddo in a totally different way around how he interacted, his banter and his connection with the kids. Gareth Wally I worked with obviously closely day to day in terms of, and he helped me so much in terms of that time was when I was really struggling, in terms of not struggling but like really adapting into a new programme and feeling it really different. Gaz was massive for me. Carlin would give me honest advice, give me honest feedback. If it was shit, tell me it was shit, and if it was good,
what was So for me, Scott Sellers was...
Yeah, I'm going through his loads, like going right.
Scott was massive for me because, you know, when I was at, say, Blackburn, or I had a little spell in Israel for a bit before I come to City. And it sounds crazy, but I was used to certain shirt numbers being certain positions.
Yeah.
And when you change club, like City was so set on the 6, 8, 10, the way they laid it out. And at first, it was really understanding what them numbers were and stuff. So Scott was someone who really supported me. And what was really good with Scott was he was firm, but he was also caring. Yeah, like he could see that I wanted to learn and I wanted to be on the grass and develop myself. And you know, for someone like yourself coming in, I don't know. I mean, how? No,
like I said, I could go through everyone there, but Scott was probably still at that time. Scott and Mark Allen were massive for me in terms of Mark was the boss, was in charge, but was equal. I don't know if I just connected with him, but I always felt that kind of assurance from Mark the way he was. Yeah. But Scott was like, in terms of support, in terms of feedback. Yeah. And the probably the biggest one we've talked about already, but like was modelling stuff. Like Scott would be like, I remember like my lad had been ill on the Saturday, we had to take him to hospital or whatever, panicking like mad. So I texted him going, I said I might not be there tomorrow, like I think it's quite bad. Fortunately it wasn't, and it was like a hand, foot and mouth. I thought it was meningitis and it was hand, foot and mouth. So I said I might not be in, and going in on Sunday, first thing Monday morning came to me and was like, right, well do your bits today, make sure you're organised. I'll take your session tonight, you get off. And I was like, that means so much. Do you know what I mean? As a boss, he didn't have to do that. And he was like, you get off. And him like being, I'll come tonight, I want to be around the session. And either I was coaching or he was coaching, we do a bit each. But he wants to be around it. And that was massively, I think, in terms of me adapting. Into he was helping me and guiding me and shaping me of what Man City looks like. But also just him modelling that of, I can tell you, I can sit there off and tell you, you do this and that. But then this is what you actually need to show and how it looks like. He was so important, and you could see his enthusiasm, you could see his beliefs and his care of every kid, whether it's the best player or the weakest player, he cares.
It's his life, mate.
And it was massive for me, that. So Scott was bad. And I was probably unfortunate. I only had 6 months with Scott, but it felt like 6 years. Do you know what I mean? And against this day, if I see him now, I can still talk a lot with Scott and do.
What about after Scott then? Was there anyone else there?
Yeah, obviously the Rodolfo came in.
What a man.
And was just totally different. Totally different. And it took, probably for all of it, took a while to see different sides of him. And he's probably the most impressive person I've ever met in terms of just how much to open himself up and allow himself, and in terms of his knowledge, in terms of what he was sharing with us, in terms of his personality. But I was fortunate to see a bit of that over time, and had some brilliant times on tournaments and stuff, and saw the other side of him. But in terms of a learning, like, he could remember the office, like he'd come in and go, "Time Spurs," whatever it was, come here, and whoever he shouted, everyone always remember that, and this will probably resonate with you. Whoever it was, it's a long office, and I was sat like kind of middle to back of it. You probably sat just behind us. Whoever it was he shouted, the first thing they did was go out, open the drawer, get the book, and go, because you knew you were getting information from him. So we'd go in, and you'd be in there maybe 10 minutes, and you'd come out and you look and you had 3 pages of notes in your book, and you're like, how's it? It literally, you'd hang on everywhere, but it made sense. It was logical.
When I seen Rodolfo, it was funny. Rodolfo didn't drive.
Yeah.
So we used to catch a lift for everything. Right. And he ended up shaving it.
Oh, yeah.
Now I see him in a nice shiny.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But obviously this guy, let's go back to his story, you know, he used to be a fitness coach at Grosvenor, right, which is in Barcelona. Yeah. And he's gone to Barcelona's academy. Then he's had the journey of being there. You think he was one of Leo Messi's first ever coaches, right? Which, to be around anyone who's ever had that opportunity and to see a player like him develop and to be part of that, you're always going to learn of someone like that. Yeah. You know, he was a big guy. He had presence. Yeah. He knew how to communicate. He knew how to make you feel like honest. Yeah. And he also knew how to make you feel at ease. Yeah. Like delivering good news, bad news. But I think tactically for me, I think he took the program to another level tactically. And for me as a person, he developed me tactically, made me aware of things which I'll hold my hands up to, like, I never even thought of that. Yeah. I never even seen that.
Yeah. No,
I never seen that happening. And sometimes, like you say, he could be at the top end of that room. It was Jace Wilcox, Gaz Taylor, yourself, whoever else was up there. And I'd be a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
And I remember once I seen you lot on that board for about 4 hours.
Yeah.
Talking about how the fullback moves and how that affects, you know, the 6 or the 8 or the 7 coming in or whatever it was. But that passion of like just developing like players' minds to see these pictures.
Yeah. I think the big one with all of us was that coaches' minds. It was the way he knew how to give people what they needed at that time, and I certainly felt like for me, what he was giving everyone what they needed for their age groups, and he'd done every age group, so that was a massive part of it. He'd worked at every age and coached every age group, so he knew what it could look like, and he knew obviously from the best of the best what it could look like. But he'd go bit by bit, and he'd ask you little questions. What do you think of him? Where do you like? And he'd do little reports on who your best 3 players, who your long-term best 3 players, and you could see he was constantly, but he was just drip feeding, and it was little bits. So I remember he would say to us, like, right, if you want to go to the second, and he didn't do it with every age group, 11 aside, if you want to go for 3-4-3, you can do. And it was like, me, Berto, I think Gaz had the 16s. If you want to go there, you can. And I was out doing the 12s, and it was like, they're still learning the 4-3-3. They don't need the 3-4-3 yet. Berto had like, I think it was McAtee and them lot. So they were a bit more ready, so he would do it a bit more frequently. And it was, and he respects that with us, that we'd do it when we didn't just do it because it was something new and fancy, and it was, look at us. It was just trying something different. But his knowledge and how he could break it down and explain it to you, like, he felt like, we probably had like half an hour conversation around 3-4-3, and you felt like he'd been doing it for 3 years, do you know what I mean? And that was his ability. I think he had so much knowledge, but even better that the way he communicated it and kind of broke it down for you.
Do you know, he was the best person I've ever seen out in my life, and I've seen a lot of people around the tactics board, mate. You have never seen someone move magnets like you got he moves like this, and you'd get a magnet to literally flick it, and the magnet would go and go, and you just go, oh my god, this guy, like, because
I tried it once and it went
I'm oh shit, I haven't got a magnet on the back of me on my things. But you know, going back to what I said to you, people who've shaped you, people who've developed you to be where you are, to give you that knowledge.
I think, like I say, I think on that, there's so many
people who you couldn't pay to get.
No, like I'm always saying, I'm so fortunate to have worked with under Rennie's program at United, and then under Rodolfo's program at City, but then equally be shaped by people like Scott, Tony Philliskirk at Oldham, Nick Priest at Oldham, like pretty much every coach. Carlos came in as an intern, like, and he was. I remember there's like the safeguarding fella saying you can't coach because you're only an intern. And I'm like, my big belief, like, if I was only about this for a week, if I was in the academy now, I'd be saying, well, don't have a lead coach and assistant coach. Just have coaches, 2 coaches who are both capable of doing
value,
and because coaches coach, and that's so I was like, how to do this, and I know now, again, still speak to Carlos now, that he was so respectful. I didn't want to come in and give, and I almost wish now I would have got Carlos 2 or 3 years down the line, because he would have shaped me loads, like he has done anyway, watching his teams and watching how he works. But he was only like an intern, and he was very respectful of that. But
what's lovely to see in it, you know, you see people, and I remember moments when you're in a club and you're working in an organisation, and you've all got the same outcome in regards to developing players, but you're not all the same people.
Yeah.
And what I love to see is, like, you'll know this, and the amount of times I've seen you at a game, or I've gone, oh, so-and-so's over there, and people who are very similar in regards to the passionate to be, you know, the best coaches they can be, and to develop players to be the best people they can be. You know, it's so nice to see people growing, progressing.
Yeah.
And some people are in football in different roles compared to where they were when we knew them. But seeing people grow and, you know, getting success in different ways, getting success in regards, they found a role in football now where they're really, really happy.
Yeah.
You know, they found a role where they've really affected people, and they might have gone into a different area of football, academy, women's, first team, like yourself. And I think at that period when we were at Manchester City, and in that time period, what you was there, and there were so many people who come and gone in various ways. They transitioned into different roles. They transitioned into going to other clubs. They transitioned into senior roles. You know, it's amazing to see.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
so moving on for me is now obviously you've come through community work, soccer schools, international work, pre-academy, youth development, you know, under 18s. You've gone from being at a football club which probably put a minimal amount of investment into it to spending 9 years at one of the biggest football clubs, which went from being at a council facility to then having a facility which is world renowned with some of the world's best potential in there, to now obviously moving forward now to working in a first team environment, working with somebody who has also been on a similar journey to you. So now you're at Barrow as a first team coach. It's been an amazing journey for you, mate. You know, and you've still got lots more to come. But I think what's key for me is seeing where you're at now, how you see where you are, how you see your journey to get you where you are, and also what's next. You know, what's next for you.
It is. I think it's easy because as we know, a lot of coaches will have a real kind of career path or plan of going this, and I get to that, and I want to be a first team coach. I never did. I was quite happy working 12 to 14s for a long time. But then I got to a point where I knew it wasn't testing me, and I needed something more, and I wanted maybe that head. And at the time, my head still wasn't going towards first team. It was maybe going 18s. I was really big on an individual coaching, which I still believe in. I wanted to try and find a role within that. As maybe I had a coaching type role with my experiences now. Could I help other coaches and guide a program? But I was never thinking towards that. Even when so I got to the point of City where I kind of agreed that I wasn't going to get what I wanted, so I was going to look for something else. And literally, I remember the next day after finishing at City, I got offered a role as an agent, and I was like, I could see it. I could see it. It's still the player facing. It's still connecting with players. They wanted to try and shape me around, like working more practically with them as opposed to just being like the business side of it. And and I was like, well, I don't know that side, but I know this side. I can work with players, and so there was some appeal to that. But I was like, but that's probably the end of my coaching, and I've worked so long now to get to this point. Like, what's next? So I was talking to another club about another opportunity there, and then obviously I've known Pete a long time, and that came up through a conversation. He rang me, and he's like, listen, and it basically come about like I've been up watching his. When I finished at City, I've been up watching Halifax, where I was at the time. We were getting ready for the playoffs, watching training, just being around because I'd not been around that level. I didn't know it. And his assistant who was with at Halifax, was going to stay at Halifax, who was looking for an assistant. She rang me, said, listen, come and speak to you. He had to come and met me in a local pub. I was going to my brother's gig the next day. So we're in the pub in the morning. Come and meet me. So we had our first Barrow meeting was in my local. And he said, listen, it's an opportunity for you. He's working. I remember like all day then I was at brother's a meat promoter, runs a festival. All day I'm thinking through my head going, I don't want to let him down first off. He's like built his career for himself now where he's gone at Oldham, he's done really well. He's gone at Halifax, done brilliant and got him from nowhere to somewhere. Like, I don't want to let him down. Am I ready? Can I do first team football? I don't know. I've never been around it, never seen it. I never planned for this. Like, but then I spoke to someone who valued myself in his opinion, and he said, you can always go back to being an academy coach. He said, but you probably never get this opportunity again. And you'll always look back and go, what could have happened? What? It's the worst case. You go in for 6 months, it's not for you. But now you're a 12s, 13s coach looking for a 15s, 16s or an 18s role. Then you're an assistant manager looking, or a first team coach looking for an 18s, 21s, an individual, whatever you can shape yourself. So I was like, you know what? That resonated with me massively, and went into that. And it's fair. It's been like the best 2 years I could have had in terms of a coach. Where I was at in terms of mentally, in terms of what I needed, what I wanted to test myself and to challenge myself. It's done that. I had to go to so many League Two games because I talk about references. So my references are like now I think it's 105. I think we're on now. But still, I'm going. Talking to Nigel Clough the other week, like he's got thousands. You know what I mean? So like from a player and a coach and a manager, I can't become that. I can't just invent that. I just got to keep building it step by step. But what I can do is learn more and more about it. So I go out, I watch a lot of football, I watch games and be around it, see
Well, what's key though is you know, in the next couple of weeks, I've got some people I'm sitting down with here, and also doing what I do, going to consult and speak to people. Some of them, mate, have been in football for over 30, 40 years, yeah. And you know, the way you talk, they talk no differently.
Yeah.
They don't talk and go, me. What they talk about is, we're doing this okay, we can do that better.
Yeah.
You know, we've done that, but now we've got to do this.
Yeah.
So it's that mindset of not being a museum, be a factory.
Yeah.
Keep producing.
Yeah.
You know, keep ahead of everyone else. Keep thinking differently than everyone else. Because if you think like that, your players think like that.
Well, I think that's the one for me, and probably the best bit. My biggest fear was doing the same age group for so long that I kind of felt I knew what was coming, when it was coming,
Predictable.
who it was coming with, and I was like, and I was massively on like, it's not the kids' fault. The kids I was working with that last group, it's not their fault that I feel like this.
Yeah.
So I've got to put on this show for them that this is the most important thing for me.
Yeah.
And this is giving me everything I want from the game. But also I knew it wasn't. Yeah. So there's an act there, and I don't think that's healthy. So this now gives me that. It gives me that every day I'm going in going, I know I'm
sitting straight.
I'm out, but every day I know I'm still out of my comfort zone. I'm not in terms of coaching on the pitch every day, and as I said before, like they'll enjoy me saying this. They are just big kids, like they are like bigger kids. So we have loads of fun. We mess about with like, but there's also an element of we work as well.
But I seen what you got to remember. I've come and watched you train here, and I've seen you in various scenarios over the years.
Yeah.
You know, I think I've seen you when you first started.
Yep.
Yeah. When you were trying your best to get a position in the club. I've seen you fully fledged in your role.
Yeah.
Flying, loving doing what you do. And I've had conversations here along the way of where things might have not been going as smoothly.
Yeah.
And when I seen you on the pitch at Barrow, you know, what I love to see, regardless, football, life, business, is seeing people happy, mate.
Yeah.
Right? And you're a top person, Temps. You know, you're one of the people who, when people talk to me about, could be League Two football or professional football, but someone who's come through that pathway of academy football to there, number one is your feet are on the ground. Yeah. You're an approachable person. You care. And when you're out there, you're doing what you do and you're lost in the moment, which you're not even thinking, you're just doing what you do anyway. What's great for me to see is how happy you are out there. Yeah. Because that happiness and that positivity, you can see that with the lads around you. Because before I had a conversation with you, I seen your lads in the Total Fitness gym. Yeah. And, you know, George, Benny, the other lads, Terrell, who I've known for years. Yeah. You know, you only get a true opinion of yourself when you're not in the room. Yeah. And how they were speaking about you as well, what you bring, you know, they love training, they love obviously the variety of training. I think also what they do as well is they appreciate the players I've spoke about you in this role, is they appreciate you assessing what they need. Yeah. So knowing when you need to go hard. We need to work better, more tactically. Do you know what? We've just been battered, but do you know what? It's not the right time to press hard now. Yeah. You just need to play. Yeah. Because what it comes down to at the end of the day is you, me, anyone else, my little boy, your little boy, why do you play football? Because you love a game. Yeah. And if you ever take that away from people in that environment, then they start to resent it a little bit. Yeah. So you're the key holder. Yeah.
I think I'm on that. I think I'm fortunate in terms of I was massively like imposter syndrome, and people say it's a thing. Like everyone's got, but I've got everyone's, and more talk to people. Like I've talked to players who've played at the very top. I've talked to people in business. I've talked to like all, and I always ask them about it and go, it's normal. Of course it is. It's not. Everyone's got it. Everyone's got it because you're going like I'm stepping up here. I'm doing something that I'm not. Now imposter like it can be thrown out, guy like you're like imposter. And we've heard it. Yeah. But that's I'm going, I'll embrace it. So I went into this massive imposter syndrome going, my first session really matters. Like, I've got to get it right. I've got to put a session on that they'll I can show. But equally, like, I'm not going to impress them with trying to invent a football career that didn't happen. But I've been, like I say, so I've been fortunate with Pete in terms of the environment he sets as a manager, that he's humble and he's down to earth, and so that helps me. It helps me with I've got massive trust in him, and likewise back at home anyway, that we've got that trust between us, that we're honest with each other, we're everything. But then that lends itself to the bigger group of getting to know people and connecting with people. I think humility comes all the time. Like, if you imagine their feet on the ground, I did we play Crawley away, and you in a game you spot something, so that run off the back of our midfielder didn't track him. So I've gone mad, like shouting over the pitch, "Dude, track you!" Sorry, I could see him like throwing his arms, which he don't normally do. So I've gone in, and before I've gone after him, like I said, let me just see it again, and I was wrong, and I went, but because I've done it on the pitch in front of everyone, I didn't just go, I was wrong there. But lads, just one quick one. Do you know, I was wrong. Sorry, I shouted onto you. It wasn't that. And I went through what had happened. It was he'd gone on towards the first man. The second man were off his back. It wasn't his man. So I put my hands up. Do you know what I mean? Because to have that, I think, is so important. That
but do you know what that is, Temps? That's I'll spin that into my situation, so I can always. So when we was at City, going on these tournaments. Okay, you're spending more time away with heaps of children while you're on. Yeah. So you're obviously invested in these people, kids, players, whatever you want to call them, right? And we took a group to Spain last minute, Rodo special. Biggest tournament in Spain. Yeah. You need to go try your best. Yeah. Like, in other words, you need to be there or there. Right? Yeah. So anyway, took this group. Amazing group of players. We were young. We didn't have many who were physically as capable as some of the other players in Spain. We got to the semis, right? So obviously you're at the semis, speak to the players. Do you want to win this? Rees, you want to win it? You know, they're all there. They're all knackered though. The legs are hanging off. Roasting. Haribo sweets flying around the room, even though sports science are probably mad for that. Whatever it took, we were doing it. And I always remember Will Dixon, tiny, come in, streetwise striker, wanted, Yeah. So, playing against big guys, like, so I'm going, set the ball. Yeah. So he's looked at me, he's gone, mate, got a better idea than that. Boom, dropped his shoulder, spun, toe bunged, because he had an unbelievable toe bung. Yeah. Which some people like, you should be striking the ball. Hang on, the ball's in the back of the net. We won 2-1, got to the final. Anyway, the final got destroyed. Yeah. My point is, he had a better idea than me. Yeah. But because I was so engaged in the game, my emotions took over. And I always remember, go back to what you've done. I did the same thing in the dressing room. And do you know what I did in the final? I went, just go and play and enjoy yourself. Yeah. Because sometimes what you got to do is like, take a step back. Yeah. And even though you're in that first team environment where there is pressure, you've not just got a few parents, you've got fans on your case, writing things about you, good and bad, right? But having that honesty with the players, that's where respect is given. Yeah. And then for you, if you do that at the start of the season, you got the whole season with that player. Yeah. So if you're not honest from the start, at any point, it carries over, doesn't it? Yeah. So it's so refreshing to hear you talk like that.
No, it's massive. But again, it comes back to what we started off with around, you're not talking about like techniques and tactical levels. Of course, that's happened. Of course, it does. I've developed so much tactically in the last 2 years. But the biggest test for me was always going to be like, you got to know what, firstly, you've got to know what you're talking about. Going back to my first advice, learn your techniques, learn the game as the best way you can possibly. You can always learn about the game. You've got to have something to talk about, and you can't just be a good guy. But ultimately, your real connection to the coach is having that information, but then how and the different ways you get it across, and the what you model yourself as a person. Like the kids, my biggest thing with kids at City, I hope they all remember this, would be not teach them like to see back foot, whatever, because we all did that.
Break the line.
Break the line. We all play a part, don't we? Yeah. Who taught him that? Well, you coach the same at your age group, and I coach to that group, and he coached to that group. So who taught him it? Like we don't really know. We all taught it. Like that was a club belief, the club kind of thing. Do you help them? Do you shape them? Of course you do. But the bit around like how they act, how they behave, how they conduct themselves, how you model humility, and hands up, I got that wrong. Like so important, and that's real culture. I think
the biggest sign of respect for me, you haven't seen someone in 7, 8 years, 5 years, you bump into them in the Trafford Centre.
Yeah.
They either turn the back,
Yeah.
or they come over to you.
Yeah.
And I find personally myself, even though I've gave people good news, bad news over the years, I've always been mindful of them and where they're at, and I've always tried to do the best for them. And I think you've been exactly the same. And in the environment you're in now, which is a much more high-pressured environment, a big thing for me is the amount of hundreds, thousands of people, players we've both worked with over the years, is when you've not seen someone for a long period of time, is when you get to see that person, is their reaction to see you. And I always find with parents, with players, with, anyone who's been involved on that journey, they've always had the time for me. Or they've always wanted to talk to me when they see me, or if we've been passing by and you bumped into them, because they've respected what you've done for them.
Yeah.
And even though at certain points they probably despise you and they think the world's against them, you've actually done the right thing to help them for the future. Now you're in a much more high-pressured environment where there's fans, probably chairmans, I don't know, I won't get into that, but you're in a performance-based job now. It's not just development, but development has to be in that job, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you're not showing that you want to help people get better.
Yeah. Well, also the two, and that's the biggest thing, like, it's about, like, academies winning. Of course, of course, it's football. Like, my big thing was always with kids, like, they should go on the pitch desperate to win.
Winning mentality.
Be that a grassroots team, like,
mentality.
Or be an academy team, be it the FA Youth Cup, or be it a league game, be it a friendly. Doesn't matter. If you're playing football, you're playing to win. There's a reason there's a score kept. The key one was for us as staff, as coaches, that's not our main objective, and that's not us. Now, obviously, now it is. We play Saturday to win, but to win, you've also got a process and a kind of program that helps that. So we know really clearly, and probably our biggest kind of thing we can take for the last 2 years of teams, other staff or coaches, like after the game, have a beer, they'll say, "Oh, your style of play, this, and this," and we don't play in a way that we played at Man City. We don't play some of the teams in our league. We play a certain way that kind of stifles and stops other teams and then look to break on them. But Tim said, "You're the best." Someone said to us, "You're the best at what you do." And I was like, to be on the bus going back going, that's going to be massive for us as coaches. That's going to be massive. That we know what we set out to do. We're not trying to set out to be this team or that team. We set out to be Barrow, but we're being the best at the way we're playing. They see us as the best, and to get it respects a lot. So that's massive for us. So I think it's the two things are hand in hand. Your ultimate is to win, and to win at all costs, and to win it. But your work supports that, and we feel prepared to win by the work we do.
Let me ask you a question. So, I see you now, I see you from a distance, see you from social media, speak to you. I obviously look out for when I see Barrow. That's Wildy, Are you happy in the environment you're in? Do you feel like for you found somewhere which you're really thriving as a person?
I think massively. I think it's, like I said, it's been my best 2 years as a coach. I look back, and obviously the kind of the feelings you get from being at competitive level, and it's different. It's a step up, and of course that's massive. We could have had a really bad month where we lost at the end in terms of excuse me, not getting playoff, missed out by a point, massive lows. But I felt more than ever this 2 years around, like, so much progress, so much development, so much I've learned about myself. I know where I need to get better, the areas I need to improve on. I know where I'm strong and how I can keep growing that, and what the outcome of those interactions can be. So I think it's given us, and I think we've created a really, really strong environment in terms of, say, our training. You've been there, like, it's even more so this year with having a real base. It's fun. We have to do like a darts league where it's crazy. It's like some off shooting stars or something like that. It's crazy. But then we can do that, literally walk out of there with it being carnage. To final, we had silly string, we had water guns, all sorts going off. But literally you walk out of that into a meeting about the game, and they're like, boom. Yeah. And that's where we go. We've got something strong here. We've got an environment that says you can have fun, you can have that, but equal, then we can flip straight away. We can go out onto the pitch, now we're working. And the lads know the difference between when we're messing about and it's carnage, and when it's serious work and we're going.
So look for me, Temps, so happy to see where you are, see how you as a person growing.
Yeah.
So just you're not someone I see who's just going to stop.
Yeah.
Or someone who's got, I'm in the role where I want to be, you know. I think you're always going to keep growing, learning, developing. You know, everyone just says nothing but positive things about you and also your journey to inspire others.
Yeah.
For me, as someone who's worked with you, you know, I love to see people be in a place in their life where they find purpose and they find happiness.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you're in a role and in a structured week where you can't wait to get in the door, you're winning. It's not about money.
Yeah.
It's not about being seen here, there. If you've got something in between your teeth every single day where you want to be around the people you work with, you want to be in the environment you're in, you're smashing life, mate. So, massive well done from me. Obviously, new season starting. I'm sure you as a football club, yourself, Wildy, the players you've got, whoever else will probably pop through the door or whatever else goes on, that's up to you. But I'm sure you're going to have another continual, successful year. And I just want to say thank you for coming on and, you know, sharing your story, being open and honest, you know, talking about things which I think will really support players, parents, coaches, managers currently, and also the next generation to hopefully be in a position you're in, because I don't think there's enough insight and people really understand the journey of how people get there. I think it's very stereotyped. You have to be this to do that, and it's not. It's not. I really appreciate you coming in today.
No, I've enjoyed it, mate. It's great. Obviously, the work you do, it's great. I enjoy watching it, so I hope I've added a little bit of that to that as well.
That man.
What's up, man? Cheers, mate.
Thank you, mate.